Narek plants a seed in Soji. Elnor has heard about Spot, and Rios hates that hospitality program. Hey, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing our review of Picard Episode 4 called Absolute Candor, directed by Commander William T. Riker himself, Jonathan Frakes. How are you today, Cirroc?
Doing good. Doing good.
Awesome.
Absolute candor.
And at least they let us know exactly what absolute candor means.
They do, and it does make sense in this particular episode. They go in depth to explaining it. Shout out to Jonathan Frakes. I think he's directed more Star Trek than any other person. Is that? I mean, he's close. It's got to be. It's got to be
more
close.
Than any other Star Trek actor, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Well, only because that I think he's done movies. He's done
two, yeah.
He's done two of the movies. He's done several DS9 episodes. I know he's done several Next Generation episodes.
Right.
We see him here now on Picard. I don't know about Voyager and the other shows, if he's directed on those, but I assume that he has.
Yeah, he did. Let's see. So we know that he did First Contact and Generations.
Right.
And I'm trying to see how many episodes he's actually done. Let me look him up real quick. And we know that he's done Discovery. It looks like he's done 5 episodes of Discovery. I thought it was only 3 or 4. 2 episodes of Picard. He's done The Orville. Although people will argue that that's not Star Trek or that is Star Trek, but technically it's not, no matter what anybody thinks. He's done 3 episodes of Voyager, 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine, and 8 episodes of Next Generation. So that's a pretty extensive list.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at it in its totality, that's 5 different television series of Star Trek that Jonathan Frakes is associated with.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
And I don't think there's another person out there that can say that. So that's why I just want to highlight his vast, extensive career directing Star Trek episodes, and also the distinction between the shows that he's directed, both stylistically, visually, what it looks like, what, the end results have been from the motion pictures to the different episodes of television. Just lets you know that he really has a large flexibility in his style, in my opinion, because obviously these are very different shows that he gets on, absorbs the energy of what's going on. I distinctly remember that he was a fantastic director on DS9.
Cool.
People love his energy, and because he's an actor, he does very well at getting what he wants out of other actors, which is a talent and a skill set all alone unto itself that good directors have.
Pulls out a good performance out of them, huh?
Yeah, so in order to pull out a good performance, you kind of have to know what to say to the actor so that you can get that out of them.
Right. I remember when I first started acting, I had a director that I don't think he was very good at telling me necessarily what he wanted. Now, of course, I was starting out, so I wasn't great at the time, but he would say like, okay, now your character is really mad right now. Okay. And he'd be like, just like, your character is really like angry. He's feeling very like, livid. And he just kept coming up. He was just doing like synonyms for the same word. I'm like, I get it. He's angry.
Yeah.
But
so then as a good director, for example, for those of you that are listening, a good director would say to you as the actor, Ryan, I want you to feel like this person did this to you.
Right.
And explain a scenario, a situation that would then evoke that kind of emotional response that you're looking for. And that's what good direction is all about. Good writing is all about, is giving you the context so that I can then pull out from that context, right?
Right. How did you feel about Frakes' directing in this episode?
Well, I thought it was good. I really liked a few things that stood out to me. Um, One thing in particular, and I know that this is not him per se. I'm sure there's other input on this, but the warp drive FX when the doctor is talking and they're going in warp, and she's talking with Rios,
Right, right.
and I like the visuals of the way they are traveling through space. I like the way the warp looked behind her. Kind of had like a diamond radiating shine behind it, right? But there were other moments too that I thought, you know, um, Frakes is really good at what he does. For example, usually, and I don't know if I've seen this before, but usually when people are beaming in and out of places, they are still. And I remember many
Mhm.
times, myself beaming or other people beaming or watching beams happen, transports, people are still. And now in this new Star Trek, in this new incarnation, now I think this is the second time that I can recall. The first was those teleporting machines that were bringing people in and out of work that we talked about.
Right, right, right.
Those people were moving and getting beamed in motion. And here in this episode, Picard is on this Romulan planet or camp, and he beams out going down the steps in motion, right?
Yeah, now there was also like in the 2009 Star Trek movie where they're like beaming people that are actually falling. Um, so it
Right.
can be done, but it's less safe because they need to be able to lock on to your position. And so if it's a moving target, suddenly, it's less safe. But so far, every episode has they've achieved it. There have been no fatalities.
Yeah, yeah. I just personally, I like the idea of not having to stand there stiff and waiting to get beamed up.
Sure.
It seems more fluid that you would just be in normal motion and they'd be able to pick up the feel around you. So I just like it. It's just a visually visual. It's a small difference. It's a very subtle change, but it it lends a little bit of an improvement to the design. That's what I think.
Let me ask you a question specifically. This was something that people have brought up a couple times, and I noticed it in this episode. Is that they have? It seems like this newer Star Trek, Picard and Discovery, has a need to have music going in every scene, and not just the standard scoring that we're used to, but like an actual like soundtrack, like songs playing. Have you noticed that?
I have noticed that, and I don't know. I mean, I kind of liked it at sometimes
Right.
because it kept pace for. See, I think what is happening, at least with this show, is that it's a little bit slower, right? There's a
Right.
lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue, a lot of one-on-one scenes, and people talking out things and explaining what happened or what's going to happen. And I feel like in order to move the pace so that the audience doesn't feel this a stagnant kind of feel to it, kind of like I was feeling watching this last DS9 episode with Argan and Dax in that scene. With it, if there was a music going behind it, if there was a tempo, maybe an upbeat tempo that kind of
Sure.
made me feel the drama, it may have filled that dead space a little bit.
That's a good point. Um, a lot of times, by the way, I think this was probably my favorite episode of the four that we've seen. I think this is the one I've enjoyed the most. Um, but a lot of times, even if the music is possibly not the kind of scoring that we're used to, or it's a little bit more present or a little bit more busy, a little busier than what we're used to, it's obviously chosen and decided upon very deliberately. Like when we're on the Romulan, what they call it, the Romulan relocation hub. It had this really interesting sound for their music, and so it kind of sets you up for the culture of the place that you're visiting. So when we are on this planet, the relocation hub of the Romulans,
Right.
the music that's playing in the background kind of almost makes you feel like you're listening to their cultural music, which is a really cool tool. And of course, Picard shows up in his sun hat, which I thought was so cute. Seeing Picard in a
Yeah,
sun hat.
yeah. He looked a little bit. a little like Indiana Jones, a little Indiana Jones-ish, um, with his beige suit and white shirt unbuttoned. Uh, it was kind of archaeologist look, I would say. That's what I felt like, an
Yeah.
archaeologist. And that I also felt like the Romulans had a lifestyle that was similar to that which we've seen in ancient civilizations. I really felt.
Like the
Uh,
nunnery, how they were like at some nun place and they have swords,
yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
they had this. Yeah,
and then when he brings the kid, the Three Musketeers,
yeah,
it almost kind of tells you this is, there's a lot going on here to where like it feels like these guys are in the world of the Three Musketeers, with the swords, and they challenge each other to a duel later on. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. So it felt like I was getting thrown back in time, almost like a Game of Thrones or some kind of episode of Lord of the Rings or something.
Well, and then we saw baby Elrond. I mean, Elnor looks to me. That's why I put him in my notes. Elnor
yeah,
to me looks like baby Elrond. If you've ever seen Lord of the Rings,
right,
baby
right.
Elrond, he just looks like a young Elrond.
That's exactly what I wrote. I didn't know Elrond's name, but I wrote Lord of the Rings because
Yeah,
it's the character from Lord of the Rings that walks around with the sword, right?
yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting that they kind of had to, uh, this wild, wild west slash sword slash ancient Egyptian kind of feel to it. I don't know. It was interesting mix of new and old.
They did stop short though of pulling out a glove and slapping him in the face with it, though.
I'm glad they did. We know now that Picard knows how to joust, and
Mhm.
he's a fencer. You know, um, but yeah, the, I like the scenes with him and the kids, and this is now the second I think time that we've seen him talking with kids and being with kids, right?
Yeah, what's
Uh,
interesting? A little bit of backstory on that. What's interesting there is that in Next Generation, he made it very clear that he hated children. He didn't feel comfortable around them. They made him feel uncomfortable. And that was kind of Wesley's purpose on the show in a lot of ways, was to show how uncomfortable he was around children and how he didn't like them. And that's why I said, "Oh, shut up, Wesley." He had no patience for them. Uh,
yeah,
so it's really interesting now in his old age, he's become an old softy, or it means that he's making an exception for one or two special children.
yeah. But what I like about it is the contrast of the young and the old. Um,
Mhm.
he's bridging the gap between the old Star Trek and the new younger generation that have probably read about him in textbooks. So I think it's pretty cool to see the dynamic of the old and young, and I enjoy the 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 delicate way in which he approaches his interactions with these children. It shows a maturity. It shows that he's obviously gotten older and he values different things now than he did before, right? He
Yeah.
values these conversations, he values these moments with people and friendships, and he's holding on to things that we tend to be value as we get older. That's that's what I
He
enjoy about
values
it.
his lawn and keeping the kids off of it.
Hey, get
Uh,
off my lawn!
no, but that's a good point. And what I thought that this episode did very well was to really expand upon the mythology of the Star Trek universe, of the Romulan culture, of the history that is the backstory of what we're watching right now. It was really cool to see these characters so fleshed out. I mean, when we look at old Deep Space Nine and old Next Generation episodes, you know, they don't have time to they don't really explore these one-off races. They show up, they maybe they have like a little dot on their head, or they have like something on their jaw or something, and they all wear orange. But for the most part, they don't delve into their culture. With this, I feel like we really are sinking our teeth into the Romulan people and their plight and their culture and their music and their customs and their religions and different sects within them. Like that nunnery is supposed to be only for women. And then we find out, that I forgot what they call it. Koat Malat is what they call these Romulan warrior nuns, and they're only they are supposed to be, only women can be Koat Malat. But then we find out this guy, he isn't technically one because he's a boy, so he can't be one, but he's still trained by them. And they have all this really interesting mythology behind it. Anyway, that's what I thought really grabbed me in this episode. And also we're skipping ahead a little bit here, but I really liked Miguel Cabrera doing the Mexican pilot, right?
Oh yeah, when he was speaking. Yeah, when he started speaking Spanish.
Yeah, he sounded like he's like, "Ay, cállate, güey, pinche puta."
Yeah. So the Koat Mulat, or as I like to call them, the mulattoes.
I thought you were going to say the koalas. Koala mulattoes.
There's a lot of things, and actually that's one thing I actually had difficulty with in this episode was so many naming of different sects and names, and it's hard for me to kind of soak it all in. We've got the Koat Mulat, the Tal Shiar, the Daaj.
There was the Carcantar or something when they were talking about an old bird of prey.
Yeah, and then they were talking about the Ganmadan, and Vashti and the kid. I mean, there were so many different.
There was a Kalankai too, which was the baby Elrond is attaching himself to Picard as Picard's Kalankai, and they say later on exactly what that is, and what it is that the Kalankai only, do a lost jump into a lost cause. I don't remember the exact quote.
Attach themselves to a lost cause or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but all those names would just make it. It's hard for me to follow. I'm sorry, it's too many at once for me.
Yeah,
because when they start going, the Koat Mulat and the Tal Shiar against the Aj and Vashti and the Khan Madan, and I'm like, all right. I need a translator for this. What the hell's going on here? So, but I can follow the overall story because it's, it plays out. It's those intricacies of the names and stuff which start to throw me off, which is why I told you when we first were reviewing Discovery, I didn't like the Discovery pilot episode because of the amount of Klingon that was being spoken in it, remember?
Right. You're not the only one to have that complaint.
Yeah, it was just too much, and it's hard for me to follow when it's like all over the place.
Speaking of speaking Klingon, something that confused me here, and it's only now that I realize this because I'm sure it's been done before, is the Romulans, when Picard's talking with the Romulans, and they switch from speaking English to speaking Romulan. My question is, they all have universal translators, so that any language that any alien race is speaking sounds like English to him.
Right.
So how do they go from speaking Romulan to speaking English when everything gets translated into English in his ears? Like in our ears, we're hearing English no matter who's speaking, supposedly because of the universal translators. So how do they switch back and forth?
Yeah, I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt on that. I know they're doing it for effect and, to kind of make conversations personal or private, or, just to reveal that the character knows how to speak multiple languages. So I give them the benefit of the doubt on that.
Sure. Let us know in the comments below if you've got an answer for it, because I'm sure there must be some kind of in-universe answer, like an actual answer that they can give us within the universe. So let us know what you think. But what were you saying? Sorry.
No, I was going to highlight the same thing that you did, this hospitality hologram.
Oh, that guy was great too.
Yeah. Is that the first we've seen of a hospitality hologram?
Yeah, we've seen the medical guy. We've seen navigational. then we saw hospitality. Now we saw the pilot. And these are the kind of roles that when you see this, you're like, man, as an actor, that's the juicy role that you want, where you get to play 2, 4, 5, 10 different characters in one role. And really, because that's what he's doing. This Miguel Cabrera is basically showing off his acting chops, saying, look, I could play 10 different characters in one show.
Yeah, he has bitten off a lot, and I commend him for that. Certainly, he's confident in his ability to do these accents because we've now seen a variety of different accents. I'm waiting for the Jamaican version of himself to come true.
Keep waiting.
I'm still waiting for the original Jamaican man to come out now and say, "Hey, what you want, Picard?"
Very good, very good.
But yes, this actor has done a fabulous job. I really enjoy his performance so far. He is a character that I really gravitate towards, and he has a likability factor. Even though he tries to be unlikable, he has a high level likability factor.
Yeah, and I think that's cool because now we understand when I think at first Picard may have said something like, in the third episode, something like, no crew or there's no crew. Somebody mentioned lack of a crew, and now we find out it's because he's got even a hospitality guy, and he even said for hospitality emergencies, which is that's fun.
I have a little bit of criticism about the bridge of his ship.
Okay.
I don't know if we've gotten into it yet, but I just wanted to touch on it. The ship to me looks like a cargo freighter on the inside. It looks like a cargo ship. It has just like a big, bulky, kind of square boxy look in the background.
Mm-hmm.
When they're standing at the controls at the helm, and you can see behind them, you see the row of lights, and it's just like kind of boxy thing behind them.
It does look like a cargo ship, yeah.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of an issue with that because they haven't said that it was a cargo ship.
Maybe they did. I don't remember that they did. I'm just saying maybe.
Yeah.
I don't remember if they did describe it in any way, but I'm sure they're going to eventually explain what the ship is or where it comes from, or how he won it in a bet in Cloud City against Lando.
Yeah, maybe he outfitted it with the right photon weaponry, but it just seems like a clunker. It doesn't look like a ship that you would like go up in battle with or go up against, a whole entire army like he's proposing to do. So it just doesn't seem right. Maybe they're going to switch ships. Maybe they're going to upgrade. I don't know what their plans are, but it's just a little clunky and not really sophisticated looking. Normally you see the bridge separate by itself. In this one, you see the bridge kind of connected to the back hull, and it all looks like one giant room.
Right. And I think that's more of the dichotomy of Picard, the show Picard versus the show Next Generation. Next Generation, you have the biggest, baddest ship in the Federation. You have the flagship. You have this and that. And this is showing the contrast. Now he's old. Now he's not in Starfleet. Now he doesn't have a big bad ship. Now he's got some old clunker with a guy whose crew is just holograms of himself doing silly languages. And so it really shows that this is that. And they clearly wanted to just say, look, this is a completely different world for Picard, and that's what makes the show interesting. Is it's not Next Generation season 8. It is Picard's world has changed, his life has changed, and the Federation has changed over 20 years. And
I mean that's clear. He has one line. He says, "My knees aren't what they used to be." My knees aren't what they used to be.
My hemorrhoids are killing me.
Yeah. So yeah, this is obviously, we got a different Picard. It's an older Picard that uses his wisdom and knows how to coerce through his leadership the people that he needs to surround himself with to get the job done. So I think we're seeing a lot of that kind of unfold.
Yeah. So we're going to jump to our extremely quick break. Before we do our beginning trivioids, we had 3 of them that I cut out. One was Picard tells Eleanor to mind his elders, because there was a point where Picard has to tell him what's what. Yeah. Or as you put it, the way Avery talked to you or something. You said something about how Avery, like last month, you said Avery kind of looked at you like, hey, just because you're big doesn't mean you're big or something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, I had that thought right there. It reminded me of that. And also Picard wears a sun hat, which we covered, and the Three Musketeers, which we covered. So we are going to be right back with the seventh rule. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule with Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and we are reviewing Picard episode 4 called Absolute Candor, or Candor, I should say. There's a lot of really fun stuff in this. Let's see if we can cover it all.
Well, before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, because you were there at the premiere for this Picard series, and when we watched it, before we got a chance to watch the 3 first episodes played in tandem, we had the privilege of having a nice little speech from Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
And I don't think we got too much into that whole event and what it was like, but one thing that I recall him saying, and I thought it was a treat for him to speak and be there at the event and introduce it. So I was thankful to have been able to see that. But one of the things that he mentioned in his opening was that now he's an executive producer, which he was not at any time in the past. And what he highlighted was that it afforded him the luxury of being in the writer's room.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about that while watching this episode today, too.
You thought about that?
I specifically thought about that, and I think it was just because I saw, his name flash in the opening.
Yeah, right.
And it reminded me of him saying that, and then your mind kind of just wanders into remembering about that and having him kind of walk in, and is he nosy, kind of like, oh, what are we writing here, or whatever like that, or does he say, don't mind me, I'm just watching? I think he's more the latter. I think he just kind of just wants to soak in this new experience.
Yeah, but what it gave me a little bit of insight was that how detached the stars of these shows are from the writers and their process, at least traditionally, right? So we look at it as two separate machines, the front of the camera and the back of the camera. And the actors obviously are in charge of what's going in front of the camera. But, behind the scenes, the writers are in charge of what's going on there, right? So, and usually those things are separated by this firewall of distance and time and opportunity, but they're usually separated. And I think that for the first time that I can remember, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that a lead on a Star Trek show is also an executive producer. And I may be wrong about that, but
as far as I know, you're right. I could be wrong too, but I don't remember ever seeing an executive producer also being a lead, or a lead also being an executive producer. Let us know in the comments, you nerds, if we are wrong here, because we might be, but I don't think so. Maybe in the movies, somewhere in the movies, but I think you're right.
Yeah. And so it kind of makes me think of like, the same thing that he was talking about, which is being let in on the inside of the process of the way ideas materialize, of the way storylines get extrapolated, of how story arcs are created, and season arcs and series arcs, and these kinds of conversations that are had. I think they are important, especially for a lead of a show. It gives a lot of valuable context to what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And I believe that Patrick Stewart is benefiting from that knowledge in this incarnation of Picard.
Well, it also gives him a little bit of insight into more of his character. I mean, he already knows a ton about his character, but now he knows even more, because the final script is not going to even come close to covering the full Bible and all of the all of the information that the writers have on specific characters. I mean, they have like, you know, the writers have like, was this person married? What happened? What's this person's biggest fear? All these kinds of things that aren't in the script. I mean, it comes through in the writing, but if you're sitting down and you're listening to them talk about it, that's got to give you so much more insight about your character, where you go, oh shoot, I didn't realize that Jake Sisko was born in Chicago and they lived there for 2 years before they went back to New Orleans or whatever, you know.
Absolutely. And
love that.
Sure. And we don't also, because he didn't get into it, we don't know what kind of input he has. You know, he kind of mentioned it as if he was this fly in the wall, you know, casual observer. But I'm sure that, you know, with all of his experience and what he brings to the table, that he has significant input every, you know, now and then on what he'd like to see happen. I mean, one in particular that we discussed before was the Starfleet outfit. And I asked you, I told you, I said, I really want to see him wearing that, you know, the uniform, the captain's uniform again. And, you know, as you explained to me, we probably won't be seeing that, right?
Yeah, he hated that outfit. Yeah. And that's apparently that was one of his stipulations, where he said, look, one of the stipulations is I'm not wearing that damn uniform again. Yeah. So that's why they're kind of working. And that's what he did in the movies, is he, in the contract, had some kind of percentage. I think it was like 25% of the time he's actually in the uniform. That's why they've got him dressed as Dixon Hill, or he's got the uniform off. I also noticed along those lines that maybe he's tired of the spaceship sets too, and they worked a good way around it by making the emergency hospitality program, giving him his study on the ship. So now Patrick Stewart can just shoot in somebody's, you know, study, and they're pretending like they're on a ship.
Yeah, I don't know how excited I am about that. You know how I am with Star Trek and its pioneering ingenuity, its glimpse into the future of technology and the way our world will eventually, hopefully, work. But so that's why I have a resistance and a reluctance to kind of accept these older sets and these more, you know.
Right. Well, you know what Jerry Ryan would say about your resistance, right?
Resistance is futile. That's probably what she would say.
Yeah, she probably would.
But along the lines of what you were talking about, I did notice in this particular episode he was wearing a black kind of a jacket when he was on this, when he was going through the Romulan fight scene with the knife, knife fight scene. That outfit was similar to a captain's outfit. The cut on the collar was similar. Sure. The cut of the shirt underneath it was similar. It just looked like more of a motorcycle type jacket, but it did have the two-tone dark leather, black leather up here, and the just softer black material underneath, which would have basically made the same outline of a captain's uniform, right? The two-tone Starfleet uniform.
Yeah, so they're hinting at it without fully committing.
Right. They're hinting at it without fully committing to it. So maybe they'll find a clever way to make him wear the captain outfit just like that, you know, by making it more of a casual captain looking outfit. So maybe they're picking up on people's desire to want to see him in that kind of similar look. Because I don't want to always see him dressed up like, what's the writer's name? Mark Twain.
That's so funny. I was thinking that too when he was all dressed in white.
Yeah, with a little hat. Yeah. I was like, come on, Mark Twain. Where's your little Colonel Sanders? I mean, I said Indiana Jones. I mean, you can keep going. I don't want to always see him looking like that. I hope that they can get him in this, stick to find a look that's a halfway zone between what they want with the Starfleet look and also the casual look that he wants. I hope there's a happy medium there.
If they do put him in a uniform, this is what I think will happen in the very last episode. Either he will be in a uniform and he will be like there'll be like retribution, and it'll be like, here we go, I did it, we're sorry, Captain Picard or Admiral Picard, and everything's great again, and he's got his ceremony. It's going to be
right,
and then he goes and retires or whatever, or some kind of sad or tragic ending, like where he dies or he makes like a big sacrifice and then just quietly fades out into his thing in the
I was thinking more along the lines of what you said the first time, the first answer you gave, which is this retribution way. I'm thinking more like Starfleet, because now he's in conflict with Starfleet and he's basically gone rogue, right, in his own type of way.
Yeah,
I think they mentioned in this episode that he said, "Well, why don't you call Central Station and tell them it's me?"
and they're like, "We did."
Yeah, we did, and they were not impressed. So,
didn't do much.
It didn't do anything for us. So clearly, he's at odds with Starfleet, and I think that maybe perhaps later on in the show he could redeem himself and make that whole again. His relationship with Starfleet, be the hero again, and then maybe that could segue or introduce this new captain's uniform. I'm doing all this to see him in the captain's uniform. I don't know, but yes, because I do like the discipline and the military kind of feel of everybody wearing Starfleet outfits. I'm just biased.
I love that. I love that stuff. That's what we fell in love with as Star Trek fans. But this one's a little bit different. The thing that if we want to see Starfleet, or I guess now I was going to say Discovery, but even now Discovery is just kind of like about the Federation falling apart in the future. Lower Decks is going to show a lot of Starfleet. That's going to be the animated one by the executive producer of Marty.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Picard show, so it's about what Picard likes and what he wants, what he wants to do. Right. So it's about his drink and his outfit and how he's problem solves his team, and so it is his show and his style. So, like I said, I hope we can find a happy middle ground where both he and me as the viewer is satisfied. We're very close with this outfit that he had on this episode, the black one. So it's almost did it for me. The only thing it was missing was a comm badge, in my opinion, which he had on with the Colonel Sanders suit.
Right. So I do want to move forward into another thing I wanted to bring up, which was these guys. What are they called? The koala mulattoes. Their primary teaching is total communication of emotion without any filter between thought and word. And of course, when Agnes finds out about that, she's like, "Am I the only one that thinks that sounds annoying?" like where you just say exactly how you feel all the time. Just I'm hungry. I'm mad. That's annoying. I'm sad.
Yeah. Well, we have a president that does that. So
you know what I was thinking that it's going to be similar to the Data character in that, Data kind of didn't have emotions, so he would just kind of be awkward in how he said things. He would just kind of say like, I am unable to be your friend. But my circuitry is used to you. Or he would say these things just so bluntly and so obviously. And I think this kid is going to have that same kind of awkwardness where he said, like somebody says something, he goes, "I think that is a dumb answer." So, like he'll just put it right out there. I think it's going to have that same awkward innocence.
Yeah, I think of Jim Carrey in the movie Liar, Liar.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, you're right.
Where he was cursed with these absolute candor kind of gene, right? Bug. So, yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about being honest, and then there's something to be said about being honest. And sometimes when people are honest, it can be hurtful, even though it's true. it could be hurtful. And yeah, I think that you have to be aware of that. I want to get into how basically Picard becomes the Rosa Parks of Star Trek when he decides to sit at the Romulans only.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Right.
We got to get into that a little bit. He pulls off a Rosa Parks moment there, right?
It said Romulans only.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't not think of the colored only signs in during the civil rights and before. So it literally stole that exact concept, right? And you have this gross level. They called it ethnic strife, I think, in the dialogue. But you have this kind of discrimination is what it is, plainly, right? It's just open discrimination. So they played on the colored only, put the Romulans only, which I actually would love to find that sign that was in that episode. If anybody has it, I'd love to buy that sign.
If anybody has it, just go ahead.
If anybody listening has the Romulans only sign, used in episode 4. But yeah, he does the Rosa Parks moment, and and kicks the sign down on the floor, stomps it out, and then goes sit down. So I thought that was pretty funny. And there's, we also have to get into the head chopping scene. I mean, they really went full Game of Thrones on that moment right there. What do you think?
Well, I think that, and it was also, it was a little too easy. That whole suddenly he's just going to flip in, and then, the whole he cut his neck and then the slow slide off. It's been done a million times. And it wasn't quite an eye roll moment, but it was kind of like, okay, well, there was nothing stellar about it. The flipping was cool. The green blood added was obviously the right touch to do. So, that was cool and fun and interesting. But you do need a scene like that to fully introduce the character, because it's that old thing about show don't tell, and they have to show us that this kid can really fight, because otherwise they're just telling us that and we don't necessarily believe it until we see it. And now that we see that, we go, oh, this guy's amazing, or he's badass or whatever, and he can protect Picard. So that's what that was created for, was to show us that this kid can really fight.
Yeah, except he's only bringing a knife to a gunfight in most cases.
To a spaceship fight.
To an intergalactic phaser fight. So, good luck with that. But yeah, he had a nice little, stunt move with his swirling kicks in the air, the way he came in, and it was pretty impressive. The other thing that we got a little bit of that we've talked about in the past, but here they go again, was this sister. This sister that's in the bed now with her brother. I was going
to say, I was waiting to be done with this Picard part, because I wanted to be let's just go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room here.
Yeah, what's going on?
When are Rizzo and Narek, a.k.a. Jizzo and Nerold, going to just stop fooling themselves and just make out already? Just make out. We all know you want to.
Yeah.
What are you guys trying to fool?
It's too much. It's too much. It's like, just, you guys get a room already. You're already in the bed. So
and she started reaching for the poor guy's bathing suit area too. Yeah. You notice that?
Yeah. I tried not to see it because it's a little incestual, this whole little thing that they're pushing on me. They've got to give me another explanation of who she is. Maybe she's his play sister or something. It's got to be something there.
I think that they may end up being adopted or something. Like
that,
to where it's okay, because they're pushing that line. They're not crossing the line yet, but they're definitely making us all kind of go wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's just, it gets awkward for a little bit, and I just don't know why they play it that way. She's super jealous of this other girl, right? She's so jealous of her, and she reeks of jealousy. What about the sliding they did this little sliding skating scene?
Yeah.
I thought that's not what I thought it was going to be, but it was kind of a letdown for me. I thought what they were going to do was run through a chamber that was going to blow a bunch of air at them, and it was going to be like being in a car wash without a car.
Yeah, they kind of did. I put in my notes Borg skating. He said it's tradition for Borg skating. So.
But it seems like the Borg would never do that. It seems like way too much fun for
like the Borg aren't known for their fun or their antics.
Yeah. What are they? Hey guys, want to slide on the floor, man? I don't see that as the Borgs. Like, I see them in a decompression room where they walk past a bunch of like steaming things that kind of clean them out as they're walking from one place to another. I thought that's what it was going to be. Take your shoes off and let's walk this, and it'll spray a bunch of foamy air or something on us and like clean us out, come purity text or something.
Maybe the Borg do that, like the sliding around just to create static electricity, and that's how they that's how they power
the ship.
Yeah, that's how they refill their batteries and stuff. Or what do they call it? I really like that they call that Borg ship, they call it the Relic. I think that was really cool. That's good writing there, calling it the Relic. I think that was good. I made a note of that. There are a lot of little things where you go, ooh, good writing, good job, good attention to detail, good job fleshing out every single. I mean, we can nitpick whether we like some of the details, but we can't really nitpick that they didn't really flesh out every single little detail, and that's really commendable.
I enjoyed the scene, by the way, of this Elnor and Picard, where he really kind of scolds him about chopping that dude's head off.
Right.
I like the way Picard is like, "Damn it, you won't do it unless you won't fight anybody until I tell you to, and otherwise you restrain yourself," something to that effect.
And that's why I was saying Picard tells Elnor to mind his elders. Basically, he's like, hey, do as I say. And Elnor, to his credit, was just like, okay, sounds fine.
And does he make him promise at that moment? Promise you will. Right?
No, because
earlier they say a promise is a prison. So I thought he was like, now you're in prison with you.
No, but what he did say, I believe he said, swear it. And so I think that was their way around it, where it's like, it's not a promise. It's just I just swear that but we all know it's the same.
Yeah. A promise is a prison. Yeah. I wrote that down. That was a clever little line in there.
Yeah. So that lasted all of 5 minutes. A promise is a prison. 5 minutes later. All right. Whatever. I swear.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it literally lasted 10 seconds because after she said a promise is a prison, he says, well, I did bring you this gift, but since the promise is a prison, I won't give it to you. Something to that effect.
And we had a big reveal at the end. Now, we knew the reveal was coming because they kept emphasizing him. They kept saying, he is hailing us. He is doing this. He is, right when they were doing that, I'm like, okay, it's going to be a lady. Because otherwise they would say they are hailing us or they are doing this or whatever.
Okay. You knew the setup was already around the corner.
But I didn't, my mind did not go to 7 of 9. I just knew it was going to be a woman, But then when I saw 7 of 9, I was like, oh, very good. Cool. That's an interesting way to do it. And she says, you owe me a ship.
Yeah. And what's cool about 7 of 9 is now
a lot of things other than the fact that she's a very attractive person. I like the fact that, it's clear what I think is going to be happening is now 7 of 9 is going to bring us back to the board, right? We'll see.
I don't know. I'm sure that she's tying the board in through her storyline somehow.
That's the assumption. Yeah. The assumption is because we've got 7 of 9. So she's kind of like, these are like the Borg experts. We've got Hugh, who's a Borg expert because he was one. 7 of 9. We've got Picard. That's kind of like the trifecta of Borg experts on from various series.
Right. So I thought it was a good reveal. She only had one line at the end. You owe me a ship, Picard. But it was kind of, I don't know her character in the previously, so I don't know much about her. Her character 7 of 9.
She was a rehabilitated Borg drone, and she was slowly becoming a human again. But she was very robotic. She wasn't in touch with any feelings or emotions, and so. But this is 20 years later, so now she's probably a full person. She's not somebody learning how to be a person, but she's an actor.
So she was rehabilitating from her Borg.
Yeah, because she was assimilated at a young age, like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, and so she spent 20 years as a Borg, and then they rescued her, took off most of her implants, and and now she's, I would assume, basically a regular human, but just with still some Borg thoughts and some issues or whatever.
I noticed how take off most of her implants made you laugh, so I'm not going to delve into why, but I'm just going to highlight that.
There was no pause there at all.
Okay, all right. But the reason I ask is because when she says that you owe me a ship, Picard, it seemed rather casual and not surprised to see you. I don't know when the last time they saw each other, but it didn't I didn't get to feel like, oh shit, I haven't seen you. What the hell? It's you?
Well, here's the fun answer to that is that as far as we know, they have never seen each other because she was in Voyager, he was in Next Generation. So we are going to find out what that backstory is. We are about probably in episode 5, we're going to find out how they know each other. We're going to find out why she attacked his ship, for whatever reason. We're going to find out, if she even knew he was on there. So that's what's cool is they're dropping this little bomb, and to make us all go, all these questions that we're asking right now. How does she know him? Why is she attacking him? What's going on? What's she been doing the last 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, I have those very same questions. I that's why I felt like it was a little bit cavalier in the way she said, "You owe me a ship, Picard." It was just like, no hellos.
Or as Discovery gave us the Vulcan hello. So we've got about 1 minute left. Final thoughts on it? What did you think of the episode?
I thought it was really good at parts. I miss a little bit of the Doctor. I see that they're adding this Elmore character. I assume he's a regular now as part of the crew.
Probably, because Picard specifically went to go bring him along, not just for a one-off thing, but to actually have him be part of the team.
Right. I mean, he did promise a good home for him. So he kind of owes him to at least some kind of room and board for a little bit of time, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say about a 7.5 on this one.
Okay.
About a 7.5.
For me, this was, I think, my favorite of the 4 episodes. I really enjoyed it. When it was over, I was excited about it. I feel like the first 3 episodes were obviously the setup. And now they can kind of just do whatever they want. They don't have to set things up anymore. They can just kind of tell the story. So I think, and I'm hoping that it's just going to keep kind of building from here. We know it's not going to be episodic, right? We know it's not going to be Monster of the Week. It's going to be serialized, and I think it's just going to keep growing. Anyway, I liked it a lot. I like the music. I like the production value. I like the depth of character and culture and the attention to detail overall.
Yeah, I still want to. I've got the theme song still has to get on me to the point where I can hum it.
I love it. I love it.
I do like the opening note that it comes in with. I can't duplicate it yet, but I'm getting there. I'm practicing.
Cool. Great. Well, we are going to do this again next week, and it was a good time. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, like our pages, tell your friends, buy us Girl Scout cookies, all that fun stuff. And as always remember the 7th rule.